You were programmed before birth, not in the mechanical sense, not by wires or machines, but in the language of energy, memory, and inheritance. Long before your first breath, before your body was shaped and your mind was molded, you existed as consciousness, formless, limitless, aware. And in that space beyond time, you made choices. You chose a family. You chose a culture. You chose a set of conditions, not for punishment, but for transformation. The world you were born into was not random. It was designed, not by fate or by force, but by you, the deeper, eternal you, who saw this life not as a trap, but as a portal. You were encoded with the memories of your ancestors, the trauma of your lineage, the emotional patterns of those who came before you. These weren't assigned as burdens, but as raw material for evolution. And so, even before your story began, the script was already in your bones. The programming started early. As a child, your environment sculpted you like clay. Words became commands, reactions became patterns, experiences carved grooves into your nervous system, into your perception of self. You were told who you are, what is acceptable, what to fear, what to seek. These weren't just opinions. They became laws inside your psyche. The world handed you a personality, a mask to wear, and you accepted it because you were too young to remember your original face. But underneath it all, the deeper code still pulsed. Something in you remembered the truth, even when everything around you said otherwise. That inner hum, the one you've always felt but couldn't explain, is the signal beneath the programming. Most of what you think of as you is a combination of reflexive thoughts and inherited emotional reactions. Your habits, your fears, your emotional responses, they feel personal, but they're often ancestral echoes repeating through generations. Trauma doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in the body. It lives in posture, breath, silence, tension. It's passed down like a baton in a race no one remembers starting. Your anxiety may not be yours. Your fear of abandonment may have nothing to do with your own life events. The wounds you carry may be the stories your bloodline couldn't finish, and so they wait in you, not as curses, but as invitations. The soul is not bound by time, so when it incarnates, it doesn't just take on a body, it accepts a curriculum, a course of evolution hidden inside the life experience. Everything you've faced, from the smallest discomfort to the deepest heartbreak, was known before you arrived, not in the way of predestination, but in the way of intention. Your soul didn't come here to be entertained, it came to wake up, and it knew that waking up wouldn't be comfortable. So it chose exactly the environment that would reveal your shadows, trigger your unconscious, and press on the parts of you still asleep, not as punishment, but as initiation. You see, your mind believes that difficulty means something is wrong, but your soul knows that difficulty is the spark of transformation. It knows that pain, when not avoided, becomes a teacher. That discomfort, when embraced, becomes a door. Every moment of suffering carries inside it the seed of remembering, if you're willing to see through the illusion. That's what the programming hides, your true nature. It distracts you with identities, ambitions, traumas, pleasures. It keeps you busy, asleep, chasing meaning in external things. But eventually, something cracks. A breakdown, a loss, a moment of stillness. And in that space, you hear it, the voice beneath the noise. That voice doesn't speak in language. It speaks in resonance, in knowing. It's the part of you that recognizes truth when you hear it, even if it contradicts everything you've been taught. It's what brought you here, to this message, because you've started to remember. The veil is thinning. You're beginning to see the edges of the script. You're questioning the thoughts that used to feel like gospel. You're noticing the loop, the emotional patterns that repeat no matter how much you try to change the surface of your life. You're realizing that willpower alone doesn't change programming. Awareness does. Becoming aware of the program is the first act of liberation. You no longer believe everything your mind says. You begin to observe your reactions instead of being consumed by them. You pause before you speak. You notice the emotion before it overtakes you. This is not weakness, it's mastery. It's the slow unwinding of a lifetime of unconscious patterning. And it's difficult, yes, but it's also sacred, because with each moment of presence, you reclaim a part of yourself that was lost to the dream. And that's the point. You were never broken, only programmed. And what was programmed can be deprogrammed. This is not about blame. It's not about shaming your parents, your culture, or your past. They were all programmed too. They passed on what they were given. This is about breaking the cycle with awareness, with love, with courage. It's about looking at the patterns in your life and saying, "This ends with me." It's about facing the discomfort that generations before you suppressed. It's about choosing presence over projection, truth over comfort, healing over habit. And healing doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean never feeling pain again. It means relating to your experience from a different level of consciousness. It means watching the wave rise without drowning in it. It means holding space for your shadows without letting them run your life. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. The deeper you go into this work, the more you begin to feel the energetic weight you've been carrying, the shame that isn't yours, the fear that never started with you, the compulsions and anxieties that have no origin in this lifetime. They live in your body like echoes, ghosts, ancient vibrations passed down like heirlooms. And while therapy, knowledge, and inner work can illuminate them, only presence can transmute them. Because this isn't about understanding the program intellectually. It's about being still enough to witness its unraveling, to let the old code surface, without running, without fixing, without suppressing, just breathing, just seeing. And in that sacred seeing, it begins to release. That's why most people never awaken, because they run from what hurts. They distract themselves, entertain themselves, medicate themselves, all to avoid what the soul is gently trying to show them. But awakening requires the opposite. It requires turning toward the discomfort, not to suffer more, but to feel fully. Pain that is fully felt transforms. Trauma that is witnessed without judgment begins to dissolve. The program only runs when it hides in the dark, but when you shine light on it, when you stay with the emotion without identifying as it loses power. And in that moment, you remember, I am not the pain. I am the one who sees it. As you reclaim your awareness, the dream begins to shift. You start responding instead of reacting. You start choosing your words, your actions, your silence, not from the program, but from presence. And people will notice, not because you're preaching, but because your energy is different. You're no longer controlled by triggers. You're no longer seeking validation in every room you enter. You've stopped performing, stopped defending, stopped overcompensating. And in that quiet strength, others begin to feel their own distortions. You become a mirror, not of perfection, but of permission. You give others the unspoken invitation to drop the mask too. This is how the code begins to dissolve across generations, one conscious human at a time. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to prove anything. Your presence is enough. When you heal, you shift timelines. You don't just change your future, you change the energetic field you're part of. Your children, your friends, even strangers, they begin to feel it. Because healing is not selfish. Healing is service, the highest kind. Not the kind that burns you out, but the kind that fuels the soul. And the only requirement is truth. The truth that you've been more than the life you were handed. The truth that your thoughts aren't always yours. The truth that you've been following a path you didn't choose. And now you're ready to remember. Remember that you can rewrite the code. That each breath is a command. That each choice is a keystroke in the script of your destiny. That free will doesn't mean you control everything. It means you can choose how you meet what arises. And in that meeting, new realities are born. Don't rush this process. You've spent years, lifetimes even, under the weight of this programming. It takes time, patience, and grace to peel it back. Some days you'll fall into the old loops. That's okay. The goal is not perfection, it's awareness. Even seeing the loop is liberation. Every time you catch the thought, the trigger, the compulsion, and choose presence, you interrupt the spell. You teach your nervous system a new rhythm. You give the body new instructions. You become your own programmer. Eventually, the old thoughts still come, but you don't believe them. The fear still whispers, but you don't obey. The doubt still knocks, but you don't invite it in. And this is the quiet miracle. Life stops controlling you, because now you are here, fully, not in the future, not in the past, but in the space between, where the soul speaks. From here, your choices become cleaner, your boundaries sharper, your love deeper. You're no longer loving to be loved. You're no longer giving to be seen. You're no longer achieving to prove worth. You're simply being, and that being radiates clarity. You begin to attract people, opportunities, and timelines that resonate with the truth of who you are, not the mask you once wore. You become dangerous, not in the violent sense, but in the luminous one. Dangerous to systems that thrive on unconsciousness. Dangerous to fear. Dangerous to the program itself, because you've become what it was designed to prevent: a sovereign soul, a lucid human, awake, grounded, and free. And maybe, just maybe, this was always the plan. Maybe the program was never the enemy. Maybe it was the invitation, the map, the maze that forces you to remember you were never lost. You simply had to wake up. You simply had to see it. And now, you do. You were programmed before birth, but now you are present. Now you are lucid. Now you are rewriting the script, one breath at a time. No longer a victim, no longer asleep, but wide awake in the dream. And finally, living it on your terms.